Interpersonal conflict is almost always a result of unequal or unmet expectations. And here's why this is good news, because this means we aren't victims. We are not at the mercy of those who say or do offensive things. The truth is, I have the ability to be at peace no matter what anyone else chooses. Others may say things I don't like. They may not act as I feel is respectful. They may even be hostile toward me. And that doesn't rob me of God's promise to me to walk in peace all the days of my life. Because I'm walking in His presence and I'm living in His presence. But that promise, that hope, is only true if I get real about God's importance in my life. Is He truly so important to me that He is enough to give me all I need for peace and joy and hope? So if my expectations are the thing making me so frustrated or offended, then I have the power to change. We always have the option to analyze the problem, seek a solution, and walk in peace. We're going to follow this offended role icon through 4 key boxes in stage 1 on your quick start guide. These are the 4 that we are going to focus on. These are really key parts of our time with God in stage 1. When you have a relational problem, pick up your quick start guide, and when you decide that you do want to resolve the relational problem and pursue peace, and you've chosen your role in the conflict, such as the blue Band-Aid icon, then you sit down and intentionally invite God to help you pursue peace, using all the boxes of stage 1 to guide that process of receiving wisdom and insight and healing. Now, the analyze box is a very helpful place to start. We recommend when you start stage 1, this is a great box to start, and from there let the Spirit lead you place to place. Every time you begin stage 1, you read the scriptures that are cited in this analyze box, and then ask yourself those questions with as much genuine honesty and humility as God will grant you. And as you analyze the relational problem, you will gain insight and self-awareness. You will find solutions and forgiveness that may previously seem completely unknown. So analyzing the situation is such an important skill for us to develop, and one that we often skip or do badly in conflicts. So we're going to help you learn how to do this better. This graphic is on your handouts, and there are 3 steps to analyzing your relational problems. So the first thing you want to do when analyzing the conflict is describe the problem objectively. Now, what does that mean to describe the problem objectively? It means look at the facts of the situation. We temporarily set aside our interpretation, our judgment, and emotional reaction. Just temporarily. Just for a moment. Put them aside and look at what happened externally in the physical world. Like you're watching a scene from a movie and noting what did each character say or do. Don't judge or put into it the intentions, the motives of the other person. First, just describe what happened in a way the other person would agree. Yep, that's what happened. Okay? That's the objective part. Retell the conflict story using only words and behaviors of each person without any mention of emotion or motivations. Many of us need a friend to help us with this. We're just so bad at it. We need a friend to help point out the ways that we are unintentionally skewing the story to favor our perspective. Like, clearly there's a villain in the story. And so it's okay to ask a friend to kind of coach you through. That's that whole coach role. It's the purpose of that. And after you've done this, next, you identify your expectations about what you think should have happened. Now, because we're so bad at this, when I ask people, what were your expectations? A lot of times they say things like, basic manners, or what did I expect? I expected them to act like a Christian. Oh, that's not helpful. So, and it also shows that you don't really know. You don't really know what your expectation was, but they definitely weren't it. So, I'm going to show you just a very simple way to reveal to yourself what your expectations are. So you can write this down if you want. Step one, look back at your objective, factual description of what happened in that conflict event. Look at the objective situation. Step two, ask yourself this question. So, why do I have a problem with that? Step three, answer yourself by completing this sentence. Because I expected them to fill in the blank. There you go. Just by reorienting that a little bit, it may clarify, you may be able to express what were your expectations. I expected them to call me in advance, or I expected them to not do that, or like just try to be as specific as possible. What were your expectations? So I'll just say this one more time. Be sure you get this process down for how to identify your expectations, because it does seem to be very helpful. Step one, look at your objective description. Step two, ask yourself, so why did I have a problem with that? Why was I offended by that? And step three, answer by completing this sentence. Because I expected them to what? And suddenly, you just learned something about yourself. You just uncovered a really important ingredient that turned an objective situation into something that was personally offensive to you. We realize again and again how impactful our expectations are in our relationships. So finally, once you've identified your expectation, question your expectation. Doesn't mean throw them out the window, but this is where we take that flame of offense, of anger, and we just start to turn down the heat. That's what happens when we look at our own expectations.
So maybe on your paper you can write step 4, question your expectations.
Examine them.
I didn't put that.
Maybe your expectations were great.
Question it or examine your expectations.
Quite likely they were self-serving. You can be honest with yourself here, because this process is not about making a case against the other person. This is just you and God in stage 1. This is not where you're building a case in the community to all agree that we hate that person now. Okay? This is just about being honest with yourself about your part. This is your time growing and being healed by Almighty God Himself. And with God's help, He will show you any places in your own heart, in your expectations, where you have room to grow. So inside the Analyze box, it mentions 4 standards that you can use to consider the role your expectations played in the relational problem. Before we get into the criteria of good expectations, let's clarify what we mean by expectation, which is an expectation will almost always involve the word should. And that should is directed at other people. So your expectation will probably be a statement about something the other person should have said or done based on a value or preference that you hold. Okay, so here are the 4 criteria we use to question our expectations. And you can remember this as an acronym. We've got at the top, pronounced clear. We'll just call it clear expectations, right? And hopefully that will help you remember it. So first, let's talk about expectations. We'll go in order of difficulty here. Let's talk about expectations that were not clearly communicated, that are not clearly understood by all parties. Did you think they should have just known? Or maybe I told them while they were walking out the door? Or did you think it was in the email I sent 3 months ago? Okay, so if so, it's time to change your expectations about how people know things. So just ask yourself, and you can write this down on the handout. I'm going to give you a question that you can ask yourself when you are examining your own expectations in these 4 standards. So when we're looking at this very first one, clearly understood, ask yourself, did we ever talk directly about our specific expectations for this? Many times the answer is no. We just assumed the other person would share our unspoken expectations. Well, the great thing about this point is that it's easily fixable. Remember, you're not trying to be right here. You're pursuing peace. And by learning how to communicate expectations clearly, verbally, we can avoid so many future relationship problems. All right, now next, we're going to look at expectations that need to be legitimate. And what makes an expectation legitimate? Well, what does that word even mean? Expectations are legitimate when they align with an objective standard or code apart from your own personal preference. For example, if you say, that's just not right, or that's not fair, well, you need to be able to refer to some well-established public standard or rule or value shared by other people that defines what is right, what is fair. Legitimate expectations include public laws, written rules, codes of ethics, or even cultural norms in a family or a church or an organization. And the Bible provides legitimate expectations for the lives of Christians. When you force yourself to realize that your expectation isn't fair, it is not clear, then it shows you a path forward to address the problem more productively or with maturity. And even if you do have a legitimate expectation, this process is so helpful in clarifying the root of the offense. That's the wonderful part of this process is you realize like, well, what's going on with me? I'm mad at people and I don't even have a legitimate reason to expect this of them. You can see how to address the problem without treating the other person like they're the problem. When questioning your expectations, here's the thing to write down that you can ask yourself. What exact established legitimate standard is my expectation based on? Many times our expectations are based only on our personal preferences. Even when expectations are totally legitimate and clearly understood, they can become unreasonable.
I'm going to pause it there and illustrate that last section. I was thinking about how to illustrate it. Like in our church a few months ago, we decided to have a social media policy, right? We set out a bunch of different guidelines, which are kind of like expectations, and then we put down 3 rules, right? So, that was then, because in the past we could say, oh, I didn't like that post by someone. Well, what didn't you like about it? Or, I'm disappointed. I didn't like that. So it was, we can say something about it, but we could also have a conflict. Well, I have a right to do that, or I don't have and so because it bothers one person, it might not bother another. So that's why we had the guidelines and the rules. And so that's kind of what she's talking about. Sometimes what may bother me or what may bother you is different than what bothers someone else. And so, but then we have different expectations. So somebody is bothered by it, but we can't say, well, she should know or he should know, in any area, not just social media, but I'm using that as an illustration. So that's what she's saying. It's good to have a set of standards. Don't just say, well, everybody knows that. That's not right. No one does it that way. When we hear things like that, we know that we could question that it's really a legitimate expectation. That's just your preference. Okay? So sometimes we get upset because they don't meet our preference, but we can say, well, is that a legitimate expectation? So that's what that meant.
For a specific person in a specific circumstance. So expectations are reasonable, this is the third area, when they take into account the context of that specific person's situation. Sometimes we expect things of people, but they're just not capable of doing it. Maybe they're limited by age, their developmental stage, their spiritual maturity, their natural ability, or lack of training to do a specific task. Maybe their circumstance changed. So yeah, it was a legitimate expectation, but it's no longer reasonable for that actual person in a real situation. So I want you to just think, can you think of an example when you were expected to do something, but because of your circumstance, you were not able to meet that person's expectation of you? When questioning if you
I heard a couple of yeses. Does anyone want to share an example? If it's personal, you don't. I mean, too private, you don't have to. But does anyone have an idea, something that people expected of you, but in that circumstance it wasn't reasonable? I heard that.
Yeah. People like when I was like a little younger, people expected of me to go to college, but due to my circumstances, my mom is sick, nobody will take care of her, like nobody would buy something, like no one could stand for us, So should I go to college and not take care of my mom? So like that.
Okay. Good. Anyone else have something you want to share? So the idea is something may be legitimate, but at the same time, in those circumstances, it might not be reasonable.
expectations were reasonable, just ask yourself this. You can write this down. Would most people in their circumstance be able to meet this expectation? And now we get to talk about the last one, which is definitely the most difficult and demands by far the most humility. Maybe you feel it's impractical to be loving when there's a task that needs to be done. Well, this standard for our expectations to be loving can quickly expose who is on the throne in your life. For real. Is it Jesus? Or in truth, are you the one you most seek to please? Remember when I said this was not like Christianity 101? This is not easy. This is what I'm talking about. But here's the deal: true Jesus-style love battles directly against any pride or entitlement that exists in your heart. Love, the dying to yourself kind of love that Christ modeled for us, goes against everything in our wicked hearts and this wicked world. So yeah, it's hard. Now, being loving does not mean you give anyone anything they demand, even when it's clearly not good for them or you or anyone. Okay? That's not what it means. Sometimes the most loving thing to do is allow someone to experience the consequences of their choices.
Yes.
And hold them accountable. That's how people grow.
Yeah.
Giving someone grace doesn't mean letting people become known by their persistent sinful traits and have a reputation where everyone else just kind of rolls their eyes about them. That's not loving. Are we never loving them enough to show them their fault and help them grow? Now, we must forgive always. And we love one another with a sincere heart to do what is best for that person. Now here's our standard. Philippians 2:3-4 says, do nothing from selfish ambition.
Okay. I actually had a chat with the week one music team last week about this exact thing. So, is my expectation loving, and whose needs are being prioritized? So, did you hear what she said? Sometimes being loving means allowing people in our lives to live out the consequences of their sin. Loving others also means allowing them to suffer the consequences of their sin
Or choices.
or choices.
Sometimes it's not
Yeah,
sin, it might be
sometimes it's not sin and sometimes it's choices. Last week I was talking to the week one about their children. Okay? What does loving mean? Does loving mean continually supporting someone who's just gonna be lying around, doing nothing, not going to school, and yet you feel like you cannot let them suffer? Okay. I was walking around the neighborhood after I dropped off the kids last, one of the days, and one of the moms that I know, she's talking really loud with her son and said, "Why don't you get out of the house? You're supposed to be in school. Why do you want me to keep sending you money?" You know, and so what is the expectation and the loving part? And what does it mean to love that person and allow them to grow up and suffer the consequences of their choices. Okay? So that's what she said. It's very tough to do this. You don't want your families to suffer, and yet you have expectations that causes you a lot of stress because those expectations are unmet. Okay? So
Can I have a say this interjection? I want to clarify it as Ate Miley regarding about let them suffer. Can I hear more clarification about this? Because for me, I agree with what you're saying. Let them see the consequences of what their choices is. But as a parents, we as a leaders, we are accountable with this our people, our family, our kids, so they say. Uh, because do we let them face all the sufferings, or are we there to, or are we still there while the suffering is happening? uh, I don't know if you get my point. Can be more clearer about regarding what you're saying based on your experiences or what you saw.
okay, so um, the connection that I had with the ladies here is specifically of their children not wanting to go to school. Okay, so the consequences of not continually paying for their tuition if they're not going to school, and let them suffer not going to school because it's their choice of not wanting to go to school, and you're just continually supporting a habit of using you. Okay, so I suggested to them, if your child doesn't want to go to school, that is their choice. You should not be giving money to a child if they don't want to go to school. Go out and work if they want to, but you should not be continually paying for a habit that they're just gonna skip school, not go to school, and yet want money to go out to eat or things like that. Okay, so for example, I told my children, and I actually saw it in one of the. We had like a chest, like a, I don't know what you call it. Not a piggy bank, but like the letters we used to write to them when we would, when we want to share, with them. And so was it Josiah's? Probably. So I wrote to Josiah, and also to Preston, and I said, we are here to support you, but if you do anything illegal, you do anything that you have to go to the police station for, you're going there. And we had to do that. Josiah, when he got in trouble, he had to go to the police station. He got to be fingerprinted and things like that. So these are what I mean about the consequences that they have to go through. I'm not gonna tell Josiah lie to the police so he doesn't get the punishment, that he deserved. And so I think there are some choices, and like when the kids, we would say, okay, you come home after midnight, and then we find out from the police that you got in trouble or whatever, then you have to face the police. I'm not saving you from that. We'll be there for you. We'll visit you in prison if necessary, but you need to go through the consequences of your choices. Okay? So that's kind of like what we were sharing. We are there to continue to guide. The kids know that where the key is to our house. They can come anytime. We will love them. We pray for them. But there are some things in their life, if they choose to do, they will have to go through and suffer the consequences of that. So I don't know if that's clear,
Yeah,
or
maybe I can add on regarding this because Josiah, I guess, able to decide on his own. But regarding those little kids that we still are also taking dealing with their with the conflicts with these little kids, I think they're still
Oh
dependent
yeah, I
on
think because we were talking
Yeah.
about kids that are over 18.
over. Yeah, okay, that's what
18.
I want
Yeah,
to clarify.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, but even we were going to the principal's office for Josiah ever since he was in first grade. So I am not going to excuse Josiah for the things that he has done wrong. We need to guide our children if they do the wrong thing, if they did not obey the rules or things. I remember at camp, at camp, the Preston was just following his friends, and they used because the machine was not working, so the vending machine was not working to get the snacks. Yeah, so like I don't know what brainy idea they got, but they used the coin and started scratching, the coin to put it in, and it seemed to work or something like that. So they're like, oh, what a good idea, scratch the. But that is destroying a property, right? That's destroying of somebody's property. So you know what? They had to pay, and I'm not gonna pay for his mistake. He has to pay with his own money, you know. So I mean, Josiah stole snacks at 7-Eleven. So we had to take him to 7-Eleven, face the owner, say sorry, and pay for the snack with his money. Consequences.
Sorry, how old is he that time?
He was in middle school, like 12, something like that, 11, 12, something. But I mean, also like we were in a church, and they thought it would be really funny to pull
No,
the.
they were
They're
fooling
playing.
around,
Yeah.
and they were. Yeah, it was our Chinese church that we were in, and they were goofing around in the Sunday school room where they, with a broomstick, and they hit the fire. The little glass thing, do not break, and so they broke it with accidentally. The fire trucks came. 2 trucks came to the building, so we had to pay because you have to pay a fee if it's a false alarm.
Yeah.
So we made them pay for that.
Yeah, I mean,
But they were already in middle school, and they had, they had money from small chores or lycée money. So we made them pay for it.
Yeah, those things we're not paying for. That's your choice, mistake. You pay for it. Okay, like I'm not gonna fight the school if my kid is late for school or get in trouble and then they have to sit for detention. I'm like, see you later. I mean, yeah, I mean, we have to teach them accountability for choices that they make. That's what I mean by they have to suffer for the choice. They have to learn. Life is hard, right? Yeah, yeah. Cruel, but they are too by disobeying.
But there may be some people who would say, well, that wasn't loving. Some people would disagree with that. I think many of you agree with that. But, there's different ideas of what is loving. But as Dr. Janine said, sometimes the most loving thing is to let people pay the consequences for their choices.
Oh, and my dad would always tell us, you get pregnant, you're on your own. Okay? I'm not supporting you. Get out of the house. Yeah, I mean, I know my dad was very clear. I had to sign a contract.
Count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. So ask yourself this is what you can write down. Whose needs are being prioritized? That's the short way to say it, right? Whose needs are being prioritized by this expectation? On the back of your Quick Start guide, you'll see a section of verses called God's expectations for all believers to one another. We call these the one another's. These are all commands God has given you,
It's this second section on the back.
Christian.
Right
These
here.
are commands God has given you for how you are to treat other Christians and how they are to treat you. And these are God's expectations. These are the expectations that matter most. As we shift our attention to God's expectations rather than our own, we start to see the path to peace and to just get a vision for the kind of relationship that God created us to have. These verses are God's commands and expectations. He has for all of us to do for one another all the time. This list will help you determine if a person has sinned or if they simply violated your personal expectations and preferences. Like if you're really hot, you're working through the analyze, and you're looking really hard on these one another's to find a way to make what that person did sin. You just can't find it. The point of this is not to make a case against another person. The point of this is really starting to grow inside of our own self and realize that stage one is my opportunity to grow and be sanctified and made holy. So I'm actually looking to just see things more clearly, not build some biblical case that is a little bit of a stretch, because some people would chuckle if I really wanted to take a stand on how I'm turning all these things that are totally preferences and culturally based into sins against the Almighty God. Well, when you humbly read through one another's, yeah, it's possible you may see many ways that actually this conflict, you didn't meet God's expectations, even while at the same time that other person didn't meet your expectations. So during stage one of the analyze point, one of the questions asks you to consider if a sin has been committed by you or the other person. So use these one another's that are on the Quick Start guide to help you clarify the biblical sin element of the offense, or help you realize this is truly a problem of differing expectations, opinions, and preferences. This is all part of the analyze point of stage one. Now we're going to do something really fun. I'm going to give you a chance to imagine how it feels to work through stage one of the conflict by using somebody else's conflict as a case study. That's so much more comfortable. So we're going to do that. We're going to use a very abbreviated practice of stage one. So everyone, please open your handout to the case study and just look at the front page.
It's this page.
Say at the top, they will know you are my disciples. Here we go.
They will know you are my disciples.
Bill and two other middle-aged men who are drinking their coffee after the Sunday worship service. They are talking about the weekly men's prayer fellowship they've been holding at 7:30 a.m. on Saturday morning.
So she's reading from that first paragraph here under they will know you are my disciples.
Joshua and his wife Sarah are in their 20s. They and another couple in their 20s, Peter and Ann, lead a team of volunteers in a weekly outreach gathering for disadvantaged teenagers on Friday nights in the church activity room. The two couples have been rejoicing together after worship. The Lord moved in a special way in the hearts of several very needy kids this past week, more than any time since they started the ministry 6 months ago. As the two couples walked toward the coffee table, they passed Bill and the other men. Bill sees Joshua and says, "Oh, Joshua, I'm glad to run into you. Could you get your group to clean up the activity room before you leave next Friday night, like you all agreed to? I haven't said anything before because I've simply come early enough on Saturdays to clean up your mess before our meeting begins. I wouldn't bring this up at all, except that this week each man is bringing an unbelieving friend along as outreach. I couldn't ask my guests to come with me early to help me clean up after your people, could I? We wouldn't want our guests to have the wrong impression about our church, would we?" One of the men with Bill nods in agreement with them. The other is silent and makes no visible reaction. Peter and Ann are quiet. Sarah says, "Bill." Joshua touches Sarah's arm. She stops in mid.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I want to make sure everyone is understanding the situation. So, because if we're doing the case study, so you have these 4 pictures. So scene 1, that's what the numbers are here. So the first one is Bill and his friends who have a middle-aged men's fellowship early on Saturday morning. And then the night before, Joshua and his wife and another young couple have a teenage gathering, the same room, but the night before. So sometimes, of course, they leave it a mess. Okay? And that's what Bill is trying to say. And next week, can you guys make sure you clean up like you agreed? Okay? And, he's like, I have to clean it up every week, but it's okay, I don't mind. But this week, we're bringing guests or visitors, and I don't want them to help me clean it up. Okay? So, of course, the young couple, they were just rejoicing that something happened that Friday night, and some of the young people had a real spiritual breakthrough, and they're praising God, and then this old man in the church starts complaining about leaving a mess. Okay, so that's the situation. So you can see there's also people around. Okay, scene 1, scene 2. In scene 2, uh, the wife, it says Joshua touches Sarah's arm and she stops in mid sentence because, he knew Peter probably thought, oh, or Joshua thought Sarah's going to say something she shouldn't say. But you can see in number 3, you have the pastor and a lot of other people are all watching this whole thing happen. Okay, so that's what's going on. I want to make sure you all know.
Sentence. Joshua turns to Bill and says loudly, "Bill, I know that you guys don't appreciate our ministry, the very kind of people that Jesus came for. But bringing the kingdom of God to those truly in need is not a neat and tidy business. The Pharisees love to appear neat and tidy too." About a dozen other people, including the pastor, overhear Joshua and turn their heads toward him. They watch as Joshua takes Sarah's arm and leads her out of the church. Later.
Okay, so before we go on, so basically Joshua says, you're being like a Pharisee. You're thinking, reaching out to young people is not always a neat business, a tidy business. So, you're being like a Pharisee. You need everything neat and tidy, and so he's really saying something sounds spiritual, but he's really giving him he's weaponizing that. Okay.
Both Bill and Joshua individually decide that they wanted to resolve their relational problem and chose to use stage 1 of peace pursuit to help them meet with God. Both of them chose the offended role as they started.
Okay, I need to let you know I made a mistake when I put the books together. The first part of the case, like you need to turn over one more page because basically the story after the end of scene 4, where it talks about it leads her out of the church. The next statement is at the top of the next page. I accidentally flipped 5 and 6, so page 5 is actually the next. So later, both Bill and Joshua separately decide they want to resolve their relational problems, and they want to use stage 1 of the quick start guide. Okay, so she's gonna give some explanation now.
So here's what's going to happen. All of you on this section, you guys are Bill. You are going to approach this case study from Bill's perspective. All of you in this section, please put yourself in Joshua's place and think through stage 1 from Joshua's perspective. We just learned a lot about the analyze point of stage 1 on your quick start guide. So now, working individually, I want you to only complete the analyze step of stage 1 from your character's perspective, either Bill or Joshua. Start with your quick start guide. Look at the analyze box and think through the reflected questions there. And then look at the back of your case study handout and respond to the questions under the analyze heading. And please only stick to the facts of the story.
Sorry, Janice. I just need to pause the video. Sorry. Okay, so what we're going to do now
Let's
is...
see what you realize when you analyze that case study on.
Okay, so we said this side is Bill, right? Okay, so this side, all of these groups will all be Bill. So you're looking on the left side. You're pretending to be the older man on the Saturday morning. So you have to try to think in his way. Okay? You're the older group, not the young people group. You guys are Joshua and the young couple. Okay? So you guys, all of you guys are Bill. But you can do this in your small groups of 3. So this side, so you're looking at, see the 3 questions, A, B, and C? So you need to look at those questions. What were your expectations of that other person's words and behavior before and during this incident? Start with your answers like this. I expected Joshua to, and then answer with specific words or behaviors. So this is before this and during this. And then letter B, which of your expectations were clearly understood, legitimate, loving, and reasonable? Were any of your expectations not clear, legitimate, loving, and reasonable? How did that other person meet or not meet your expectations? And then letter C, if any of the other person's words and behavior can be called sin, what are the relevant Bible verses? So use your quick start guide. On the back, the B or one another's, the ones with all of the little blue words. Okay, the second section on the back. Are there any of those Bible verses that the other person? So for you guys, did Joshua break any of those? And for you guys, did Bill break any of those? Okay, so we're just trying to analyze the situation. So, do you understand the assignment? You guys are Bill. You guys are Joshua. Answer A, B, C. as if you were Bill or as if you were Joshua. Okay? Go. You should do it in your groups. You should do it in your groups. Maybe Kenny, maybe because she's sleeping, maybe we should move over. We can move over here.
What do you mean by sorry for this English?
Disadvantaged teenagers. Like maybe they um, like maybe they were in trouble or come from broken homes or maybe poor or maybe they're like probably not from the church family, probably outside of the church family. Okay, so our group is Joshua. Let me turn this off.
Now it's 2:15. Anong expectation nito Wait, I'll get something. Okay. Nasaktan siya. Parang nasa linyang ligo. Yes. Nasa linyang ligo niya. Kasi para sa kanila expectation ni Joshua. I feel like Joshua felt like kasi hindi nakikita yung hirap niya. Like, first time in his life, you know, maybe very tired. He's not in young people. But no, hindi siya ako rin. Exactly. So, at saka, anong expectation? Ayun yung dapat natin kailangan ano expectation niya sa sasabihin sa anak? Sa sinabi niya, kasi nabilang ko ng salita eh. Ano ba ang expectation niya? I expected Bill to give me to be appreciated.
Okay, I just want you guys to kind of think about wrapping up soon. You know, we're and then we'll get some of your ideas and some of these questions. No, only analyze. Only analyze, no evaluation yet.
Pero hindi na bang kasi kahit nasa school, high school, okay, letter B. Ay, may letter B ka? Oo, letter B ka. Ay, sige. Ano? Which of your expectations for clearly understood, legitimate, loving, and reasonable? Were any of your expectations not clear? How did you meet or not meet when I expected? Ano yan? Letter B ba yan? Letter B. Not clear. Because out there, I expected will to appreciate me. So, yung unang question, which of your expectations is clearly legitimate or not? Legitimate, yeah. But, legit, yes. But it's not supposed to be. Why? Yeah, parang how about loving? Maybe it's loving. Sinabi sa part ni Baby is very clear na kailangan sila mag-inis pero si Joshua. Pero para sa kanya, para sa akin siya. So it's clear ano yun. Never clear. Hindi niya sinabi na, wait, pagod kami, Bill? Ano lang? Kasi nag-usap na sila niya. Nag-usap na sila na kailangan niya mag-ibig sa Pilipinas pa rin. Yes. Sinabi na niya, hindi sa akin mag-ibig sa akin. Pero pag-usap ko rin niya, sinabi sa kanya. Yun niya, so is it clear? Not clear. Is it reasonable? Wait, see? Number 10 na any of those words, you can go here. What are the relevant words? Tama, sige. You can use the one to another person. Tama, sige. Tama, sige. Wala siyang mali. After completing write down anything that you feel will be committed against you.
Okay, how are you doing? We don't want to take more time, so let's take some of your ideas. So let's start over here with, let's see, Bill's side. So what were some of your expectations of Joshua before and during this incident? But we're not going to take each group. Just give me some of your thoughts. Raise your hand. Anyone want to share something that you thought Joshua, what were your expectations of Joshua? That he would what? Agree to clean? Okay. So you feel like he should have agreed to clean because he had already made some kind of agreement, promise. Okay. Anything else?
Okay,
Any others?
cleaning too. Remember,
Okay. For time's sake, I'll go on to letter B. Which of your expectations were clearly understood, legitimate, loving, and reasonable? Were any of them not? How did Joshua meet or not meet your expectations? So, do you feel like your expectations were clear? Not clear? In what way? Okay. It was clear that, okay, now they may disagree. Let me ask you this, okay, since, okay, yeah, okay. So I'm going to be Joshua here, and from my perspective, for 6 months, you've been cleaning up, and you never mentioned to me that we weren't cleaning up enough. And now suddenly, with a whole audience around, you bring it up in front of everyone. Was that clear? So you could say, well, I was the Joshua team, so yeah. But anyway, I was thinking about that Joshua could have thought, and obviously expectations are building into this because they must have different levels of expectations. Maybe Joshua thinks they are cleaning up, but they have a different expectation of what is tidy. Maybe Bill wants all of the tables wiped clean, and maybe there were a few crumbs from the pizza the night before, but all of the chairs were pushed in, so Joshua thinks everything's cool. And but they didn't wipe everything down, or so. So it's different levels of expectations of what is tidy. So perhaps they should have been more clear instead of using words like clean and tidy, and said all of the chairs should be pushed in, all of the tabletops wiped down, and all of the trash empty, and the floor vacuum. Take away all of your questions would be something. Okay. To keep things going, let's go to C. Were any of Joshua's words or behavior sinful? What sin did he break? Anything from the one another's that you could think of that Joshua broke? What about judgment? Yeah, Joshua called him a Pharisee, basically. So he was passing judgment. He did judge Bill as a Pharisee. He provoked. Yeah, he definitely provoked. Okay. And I think what we'll find out is both sides did the same thing. Right? Okay. Okay. So let's go over to Joshua's side. What expectations, Bill, did you have before or after? What expectations did you guys have of Bill? What expectations did you guys have of Bill? First, A. Okay. All right, let me do it. Yeah.
Bill should be considerate. Teenagers are messy. Expect Bill to be loving, not expect others to be cleaning up. And Bill's expectations were not clear.
Okay. So you're going on to B. Okay, let me see if anyone else have anything under A.
You guys have anything under A? I expected Bill to be appreciative of what Joshua is doing in the ministry. It's quite hard handling young cleaning up afterwards. So yeah.
Okay. And yeah, so we would have expected Bill to be more lenient, more understanding, considerate, and maybe not to say this in front of an audience. So that's one reason that, you know, he obviously, there were other people around. He could have taken him into private. So what about the expectations? Were they clear?
Not clear.
Not clear. You're saying not clear.
What you were saying about the specifics of like table, throwing out the garbage. I mean, for some people, that is not logically understandable. You know what I mean? Like for some people, like for me, it's I know what clean is to me. But some people, clean is like I close the door.
Put something over it. She's talking about her husband again. Okay. Okay. Let's go to C for time's sake. How did we feel that Bill, let's see, how did we feel that Bill broke any sin? Did he sin in any way?
Unloving.
He was unloving. Bill was unloving.
Don't grumble.
Okay, grumble.
Confess your fault.
Okay, so he.
You were just saying that instead of escalating Bill could have said, "Hey, I'm really sorry to bring this up to you right now, but it's we're gonna have all these people coming. Could you please consider cleaning up better next time?" And I mean, like what he said is logical, right? But I like even the words that he said is so condescending. Like what was that he said?
The way you
The way he said it, and it's like, wouldn't want our guests to have the wrong impression about our church, would we? That's yeah. I mean, it's just like, and then there was another one that he said that was like right, or like that, adding that last dig. I mean,
yeah. So I think, in our group, we thought this whole situation could have been avoided if Bill had seen Joshua and said, "Hey, just a minute, Joshua." And, hey, I really, in private, I really appreciate what you guys are doing on Saturday or Friday night. Next week, we're going to have guests, and I just want to make sure everything is really clean before we start. So could you guys just really do an extra job of cleaning next week? Something like that.
Even that needs to be clear what cleaning means.
Yeah. And maybe he can say, maybe we need to talk about, the level of cleaning, but, he could have affirmed that. So in Joshua, he could have probably done a better job with the teenagers, but, anyway, I don't want to take one side or the other.
He's a youth pastor.
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah. So, okay. So that's kind of what we're talking about. How do we analyze? So in your situation then, what you have to do when you have a conflict is you have to analyze in a way.
What happened?
Yeah. And you have to see, was there really a sin? Maybe there weren't any sins. But you have to not just look at the other person. We have to look at ourselves. What were the ways I sinned too? What were the ways I wasn't clear? They didn't meet my expectations, but were my expectations clear? Were my expectations legitimate? Were they reasonable? Were they loving? So that's why analyze is so important. Okay. So let's go on.
Conflicts. Everyone who's taking Bill's perspective right now on your handout, question C.
Okay, we already did that, so I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to the. That's almost the end of the fourth. So we're almost done. We're gonna do one more video.
When you've been offended, after
Today we'll be talking about evaluating a conflict.
This is the guy who wrote all of this.
let's dig into another really important area of the Quick Start Guide that you can work on when you're evaluating your own conflicts. When you've been offended, after you work through the analyze section, and that does often take some time, especially if you're asking yourself those CLLR questions to really see about how fair and reasonable and clear your expectations were. That can take some time, and then you can move down to the evaluate box. Then you can begin evaluating your intentions. And here's what I mean by your intentions. The evaluate box will help you initially consider if you intend to forgive, overlook, and not have a stage 2 conversation with the offender, or if you intend to forgive and lovingly prepare to have a stage 2 conversation with them. So the evaluate box, hear me say this, the evaluate box is not about you or your feelings. That you or your feelings are bad things. But this is not about that. The evaluate step has a number of diagnostic questions for discernment about how serious the offense was and whether or not you should have a stage 2 conversation out of love for the offender based on what is in their best interest. You will often work through the evaluate box twice during this stage 1 process. The first time, it's helpful to initially write out your evaluation of what needs addressed and how you might want to address it. But later, you should return to the evaluate box to re-examine these perspectives after God has been working in your heart during stage 1. As he opens your eyes to see your own heart, and as you have been repented and forgiven before God, and then benefited from all that time just in the presence of the Lord, in the presence of his word, listening to him speak to you. Later in your stage 1 process, when you return to the evaluate step, that's when you will make the decision to go or not go, have a stage 2 conversation with the offender. Now, we're actually going to see that there is more than one option biblically for how to respond to an offense, more than just Matthew 18. Though many of us don't know that or don't think of that quickly. These traffic lights illustrate the biblical options that you will process in the evaluate step. So I'm going to paraphrase the verses that are next to each traffic light, just to kind of summarize for you. The green go verses. Gently restore a person caught up in sin. Have a conversation with a person who has sinned. Correct a spiritual sibling who has sinned. The do not go verses say, it is to your honor to overlook an offense. Love covers a multitude of sins, and love is not easily angered or provoked. The caution verses say, do to the other person what you would want them to do to you if your situation was reversed, and consider the other person's interests more important than your own. Okay, so we have 3 different kind of options, thematic options in the Bible for how to respond to an offense. Sometimes after we complete stage 1, we do need to go and have a conversation with a brother or sister who has sinned. And sometimes we can choose not to go, perhaps because no sin was committed, And we have discovered that our feelings were just hurt based on our own issues or our subjective expectations about how the other person should have behaved. Maybe they didn't do anything other than not be the person we wanted them to be in our minds. On the field, we see that a lot because we are so dependent on one another as teammates in remote areas that when one family invites another family to join them,
she's talking about
work
missionaries.
in remote places, part of what they're inviting them to be is their new best friend. And when those people show up and aren't their new best friend, or don't even like to play board games, then it's like, you are failing us on every level. Right? Like, but are they doing anything wrong, or are they just not, or they just don't exist as this caricature you made up for them to be, and now it's like wrong for them to not be. You just made that up. You didn't create them. But it's so important for us to explore, like, what is going on there? Like, did they even do anything wrong, or are they just not who I want them to be? Now, even if they did sin, maybe we realize it was a one-off, not typical of who we know them to be. So we decide to forgive that person before God and overlook it this time. Other times, the wisest option is to cautiously wait, watch, and see if a momentary behavior is an actual sin pattern or just a misunderstanding. In any case, consider the other person more important than yourself and do for them what you would want them to do for you. Now, on your essentials handout, you'll see these traffic lights, and I want you to circle which traffic light is your natural tendency when you are in conflict. So this is going to be on the worksheet. You'll see these traffic lights. I want you to look at these three and circle which is your natural tendency when you are in conflict. To go, not to go, or cautiously wait, watch, and see.
Okay. Raise your hand if you're ready to go. To meet with that person.
Anyone?
Me.
I was going to say, I'm married to a goer. I'm married to a green lighter. Guess what she's married to?
A caution.
Red. Did I go? I like to overlook the sin or the offense if I can, but sometimes do not go is not right. How many of you are more like a red? How many of you are more like yellow? Yellow, okay. Yellow is good. What were you saying?
Is it like in every conflict?
Well, that's my natural tendency. She's asking the natural tendency. But as a pastor, I know I sometimes have to. But because of my background, like the roots, because my mother, I could never say anything where I could speak back to her in any way because she was the ruler. Okay, so and she ruled with an iron fist. So I just learned not to go. Okay, she was the one who decided everything. So I still fight against that. So we have very different backgrounds. That's why we have sometimes a conflict.
Positive, negative.
Yeah.
Drops.
Yeah. But the thing is, I think the key here is to be in step with the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
Your natural tendency is not always right. Yeah.
All right. Let's pull the room. Let's see what is the behavioral pattern here. Okay? I want you to raise your hand if I say the one that you circle. So raise your hand if you circled green. Go. That's your natural tendency. Go. It's probably all sin anyway. So yes, go. So, okay? Raise your hand for red. Don't go.
Raise your hand.
It would take a work of God for me to go talk to this person about anything. Okay, fine. Now, last one. Raise your hands for yellow. Watch and see. Wait, watch and see. Test and discern. Okay, interesting. And again, like we have such a spread, right? And don't you think the people that would normally not go and the people that definitely would go, that could create some tension? Because the not goers might think if it really would take a work of God for them to go, and they project that onto everyone, and it's like, whoa, this took a work of God for them to come talk to me about this petty thing. Are you kidding me? Oh, you can just see how just our natural tendencies being different could make us totally interpret other people trying to pursue peace in a way that escalates a conflict. And yet all three are supported biblically. This type of exercise could be an excellent way of going deeper with those people that you do life with. Okay, now, more fun. Think back to our case study scenario. I know this may be really hard, but think way back. Remember these guys, Bill and Joshua? I want you to stay in your character as Bill or as Joshua and look closely at the evaluate box on your quick start guide. Imagine how you would answer those questions if you truly, reverently invited God to help you obey Him in response to this conflict. Because remember, you're not even doing the stage one part of peace pursuit until after you have said honestly yes to that first question. Do you want to resolve a relational problem? Okay? So let's presume that you genuinely do want to resolve and you do have ears to hear. How would you initially answer those questions in the evaluate box? And after you think through that on the quick start guide, then I want you to write down your answers in the evaluate question on your case study handout.
Last break.
Less thing. We're losing people. So we have to just wait until the next week for this other one.
The next part is about repentance.
Yeah, let's do that next week. I thought we were doing repentance next week anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
We'll stop after this.
So the last part is we need to evaluate.
Okay. So just so you know, this is going to be the last thing we're doing today. Okay. We were going to do it a little bit more, but I think you guys are getting tired and we need to cook. So we're going to stop here. I mean, after we do this next thing. So go back to your case study. Go back to Bill and Joshua. And underneath analyze, that next question, evaluate one. Okay? After completing the analyze step, write down any sins that you feel the other one committed against you. Which of these can you forgive and overlook, and which will you forgive and then consider having a conversation with Joshua about at stage 2? If none of Joshua's or Bill's behavior can be called a sin, is there something you think would be good to have a loving and respectful conversation about with him? So basically, if you guys are Bill, so you are trying to figure out, did Joshua, and you've already talked about, did Joshua commit sin? So you already know which sins you think he committed. So now your question is, evaluate, which of these can you forgive and overlook? Or can you forgive and overlook those? Or do you think you need to ask him about it and talk to him about that sin? Or maybe have some other kind of conversation about, maybe you've evaluated yourself and you realize, oh, I could have handled this better, and now I want to have a conversation, but maybe I'll bring this up instead. Same thing for Joshua. So Joshua, all of you Joshuas, you already know what you think Bill committed sin. Do you think you should confront him about that lovingly after having gone through your quick start guide? Or can you overlook what Bill said and did to you? Is there anything you need to talk to him about? Okay, everybody got the assignment? So we'll go for 5. Now I'm going to start with Joshua this time. Start with Joshua. So Joshua, do you feel like based on what you believe Bill did wrong. But now you've also gone through the quick start guide. You've seen your own part of the problem. So what would you guys do? Would you go to Bill and talk to him, confront him, and how would you do it? What would you say?
Well, first of all, I think we said to forgive. You cannot have an attitude of going to somebody unless you've forgiven and you've seen your own part. And you just talk to Bill about clarity. What's clear expectation.
Okay.
So
Would you say anything to him about, maybe next time, come and speak to me in private or anything like that?
I think for us, we just felt like because he's older, like maybe come to him and say sorry that we did this. We would just, maybe we could talk about clarity instead of saying, I wish you would have done it. You know what I mean? It's the elder and the younger,
Yeah.
let
So-
my fist talk.
Yeah. Let my fist talk. Okay. So you would take a very respectful, attitude and apologize for not having been clean enough. Maybe apologize for calling him a Pharisee.
But it felt good.
I shouldn't have called you a Pharisee. I realize that wasn't your intention, and I'm sorry.
I wouldn't say that was your intention.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't put two other words into
Okay.
it.
I'm apologizing like myself instead of my wife.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm so used to apologizing for my intentions.
Yeah.
All right. How about Bill? Bill, would you think you should, based on what Joshua did, should you should you apologize? Should you confront him and talk to him? How would you go about it? What do you think? Any ideas?
Bill do the things that all the churches know that there's a time that he can talk privately or speak respectfully so that no one will that. He is the one who opens the door.
Okay. So he would accept his own responsibility for doing that first. Okay. Humble ourselves.
He needs to be also responsible of what he.
Yeah. Maybe the example he's setting for everyone to be more careful how he confronts. Okay. Yeah.
Review the policy.
Review the policy. Maybe expand the policy. Say let's go back to the policy and could we you guys do a great job pushing in the chairs, but a lot of times there's still stuff on the floor or on the table. What are all those things? Okay. Anything else? Okay. So good. I'm going to stop there, but I think hopefully we've learned some things today as far as expectations about clarity, evaluating, analyzing our own